necessarily specifically on the rapture, though a couple, you just heard Dr. Jeffress. Jack, I'm certainly going to reference it. I know JD is going to reference it. I'm beginning to wonder if today's the day. Maybe it is. Honestly, that wasn't planned. This film is really about the rapture. God wants his church to be ready, waiting, looking up, anticipating, and not going through the tribulation, for Pete's sakes. Can you imagine? And that is spreading like wildfire. And so Brent Miller, let me just say a word about him. He's executive director of Ingenuity Films. He wrote and directed the tremendous film. We carried it for a long time and sold bundles, The Coming Convergence. He's going to give you a sneak preview of Before the Wrath. It will be in select theaters this fall. I don't want to say any more, Brent. It's all yours. Brent Miller.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Jan, thank you so much for that introduction. I am the executive director of Ingenuity Films and also the director and writer of The Coming Convergence, which was seen by quite a lot of people worldwide, and it's been an incredible blessing for bringing legitimacy of Bible prophecy to new audiences that never before considered it to be valid in any way. So it's still showing worldwide, and the Spirit's definitely using it to just change lives every day. It's an incredible blessing. And I'm truly blessed to have been invited here by Jan to just speak to you for a few minutes. First of all, Ingenuity Films, it's an apologetics-based Christian production company based in California. And a Christian production company in California is not an oxymoron. So a lot of amazing Christians in the film industry out there. Smaller community, of course, but networking with them, and it has been incredible access to Hollywood sets and Christian actors down there. It's been absolutely amazing, and we're all just trying to fight the good fight to get real Christian content out into theaters and into more homes. So, but our production company did do The Final Prophecies, the Decoding the Future series, and of course, The Coming Convergence. But I am here this morning to bring more attention to a disturbing and growing trend, a growing disbelief in the rapture itself, and a growing disbelief in the second coming, that Christ is even going to come back. And this has been growing by leaps and bounds worldwide right now. In fact, we've had the privilege of flying out to Nashville and working with Lifeway Research, the executive director out there, Scott McDonald. And we learned that roughly right now, 25% of all Christian pastors no longer believe in a literal rapture, which was shocking. And we want to know, why is this trend happening? Why is the trend of biblical eschatology why is it being marginalized, not only in the US, but worldwide? Why is it becoming a fringe topic that even the pastors themselves no longer want to discuss? In fact, speaking with Scott, we found out that on an average Sunday, 98% of all Christian churches in the US avoid the topic of prophecy. 98%. I mean, if you just open up the Bible, being roughly 27% prophetic in some way, whether it's prophecies that have come to pass or those that are going to come to fruition, randomly flipping to a book of the Bible and grabbing a verse, you'd think you'd come across Bible prophecy, which you would. So it's definitely being marginalized and avoided, and that's because people today no longer want to hear it, because it's a point of contention, it's a point of conflict, they don't understand it. The pastors themselves no longer understand Bible prophecy. So when it comes to topics like the second coming of Christ, or the rapture even, there's no answers that they have for their congregations. Now, in 1 Thessalonians 5:19, we're commanded to not despise prophecy. It literally says to not reduce it to nothing. But why? Because if you remove prophecy from the Bible, you remove the proof for many that the Bible is from an indisputably divine source. So that's why topics like the rapture are being viewed more as a fringe topic. It's just not being discussed at all. Now, because of this problem of the rapture being marginalized, of pastors 25% no longer even believing it's going to happen, or it's not literal, so it's not going to happen, is what they believe. This is where our new film comes in, Before the Wrath. We set out to work with some amazing experts, not only here in the US, but at Hebrew University overseas, various authors that are discovering new amazing things in the field of ancient anthropology, ancient culture in the Galilean region, and first century Jews. Is there anything that actually describes not when the rapture will occur, but rather why? Nobody seems to stop and say, why? We understand that the purpose of not being assigned to wrath, etc., but really, why does it have to happen? It's not something God just decided is going to be some fantastic thing that's going to occur. There's a very, very real reason why it absolutely must occur that most pastors aren't even aware of. I know JD is. I recognize the Hawaiian shirt right there. He sticks out. God bless you. But we have an amazing roster in this film. Interviews with Jan Markell, Amir Sarfati, Jack Hibbs, JD Farag, thank you, Jay McCarl, and more. And in fact, this new research that has come to light that we're revealing in Before the Wrath is so astounding that we got the attention of Kevin Sorbo, who was Hercules on the TV show in the 90s and acted in God's Not Dead. Amazing person that I've got to work with. And he is narrating Before the Wrath. In fact, it's already recorded and done. Met with him in the studio. A phenomenal Christian who's fighting the good fight in the film industry as well. So what we're going to do is show you the official trailer to Before the Wrath, and immediately after, reveal what is a world premiere, a 10 solid minute sneak peek of the film that has never been seen outside of our production office. Now, please keep in mind that this is a rough cut. So, color grading, you'll notice various scenes, colors are off. It needs color grading, audio balancing, mastering, sound effects. You get the idea. But I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised in the direction this film has been going, and it's going to be an incredible blessing for so many when it's released. So without further delay, let's roll that footage, and thank you. God bless you all.
As Galileans, we witnessed his first miracle. He warned us that a time of great deception would come. But we must hold on to our faith that one day he would return to save us from the end of the world.
Most people don't believe that Jesus is coming back. What if there was evidence that proves that this is all real?
Because there were so many people bringing up little bits and pieces of this. I'm thinking, there's got to be a pattern here.
The Bible talks about it as being a mystery, but why does the rapture have to happen? What's the point to it all? A Galilean would have understood that perfectly.
They are the key to everything. I'm just so stunned. I never thought I would see this in my lifetime.
This is the most profound discovery in human history.
from his promise made through wine at the Last Supper, to why the world cannot know the day of his return, we were chosen to preserve the truth until the end of days. So even if we are not spared from death, others can unveil what we knew and believe.
This discovery proves that he is coming back.
Welcome to the town of Cana. Israel's now under Roman control, ruled by Tiberius Caesar, and under his cruel authority, life is harsh for many of the Jews. But on this day, there's hope for the future. A promise for a new beginning. Because on this day, a betrothal between a young groom and his bride is taking place.
I don't think it's possible to overstate how important a wedding is in the Middle Eastern culture today, as it was in that day, the first century. A wedding was the most important event that would take place in any town for anyone.
In fact, as word spread throughout the streets that a betrothal was taking place, everyone who was able would rush to the main gate to witness it.
Everything took place at the gate, and this was really, really important because this is where you found the elders. The elders ratified legal agreements, and if you held the ceremonies near the gate, you would have layers of people that would gather around who are maybe not family members, maybe not friends. So you see, having wedding guests the way we have them today wasn't important to them. They wanted witnesses because you can't make a covenant without having witnesses to ratify the covenant.
There is a written proposal that is presented. It is a written covenant of marriage that the bride accepts.
They would be asked, do you agree on these terms? They would say, we do, which means that they can't go back on it. They can't say, I didn't know that was in there, or those terms were disagreeable to me.
After the agreement outlining the union between the two families was publicly read, gifts were then exchanged, with the most extravagant going to the bride. In fact, contrary to popular belief, a dowry, or the price that was paid to the bride's father in Galilee, was not a purchase of the bride as property as it was with surrounding cultures in the Middle East, but rather an insurance policy that would help take care of her if anything were to happen to her beloved. But what comes next will set in motion a sequence of events that will shape the future for generations to come.
Then it focuses down onto the moment where everyone holds their breath. What happens is the bridegroom is then handed a pitcher of wine.
The groom then pours wine into a ceremonial cup that will be offered to his desired bride-to-be.
And it was called the cup of joy. With both hands, reverently and respectfully and fearfully, he would pass it to his bride.
When the groom presents the cup, she now has the choice as to whether or not she will accept or reject this proposal for marriage.
The moment the cup is handed to the bride, she's given all power to stop the wedding by pushing the cup back and rejecting the bridegroom.
Contrary to all other wedding customs in the Middle East, the bride in a Galilean wedding possessed the final authority. She alone had the power to accept or reject the offer from the groom. The betrothal could not be completed without her willing acceptance to drink from the cup of wine. But on this day, during this betrothal, the bride accepts. The groom will then also take and drink from the cup, solidifying the new covenant. But then he says something truly profound.
And then the bridegroom says publicly, so everyone can hear, "You are now consecrated to me by the laws of Moses, and I will not drink of this cup again until I drink it anew with you in my Father's house."
But to understand why this phrase is so profound, we must look at another act recorded later in the Scriptures. During the Last Supper, Jesus offered a cup of wine to his disciples to signify a new covenant with them. And after his disciples drank from the cup, Jesus then said something similar to what a Galilean would have heard from their own weddings. He said,
"But I say to you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom."
This is exactly why when he gave them the cup, he actually says, "This is the new covenant in my blood. I'm about to pour my blood." It's a promise. We're going to be together again, and we're going to mark it by drinking the wine. It's something important.
The breaking of bread and offering of wine, these acts were to form a new union, a new promise meant to deliberately set in motion events of unimaginable importance.
In my Arab culture, you eat from the same bread and you drink from the same cup. The thought is that that which is in you is in me. It is a common union, communion, no longer two, but one. When Jesus says that at that Last Supper, "This is my body given for you, broken for you," he is talking as a bridegroom to his bride. When he says to them, "This is the cup of my blood in the new covenant," that's how they would seal the betrothal in the ancient wedding.
Well, when you think about the Galilean disciples, they understood exactly what he was saying regarding these things. They were familiar things.
The illustration was entirely clear to them. When Jesus said that, his Galilean disciples at the Last Supper heard only one thing: wedding.
In fact, this might explain why later in the gospel records, the disciples asked Jesus only when the events of the last days would take place, and not why. Because as Galileans, they likely had already made the connection, especially given Jesus' first recorded miracle, which took place in the town of Cana, when he turned water into wine at a Galilean wedding.
And I find this most fascinating, that the first miracle Jesus ever performed was at a wedding. And that wedding had the same cultural dynamic that Jesus was describing when he was explaining to his disciples about his soon return.